Hola.
Hello, this call is being translated.
Abuela, listen to what my phone can do.
Abuela, escucha lo que mi teléfono puede hacer.
¡Wow! Ahora dime sobre tu novia nueva.
Wow, now tell me about this new girlfriend.
Huh?
Tú sabes lo que dije.
You know what I said.
Language is no longer a barrier thanks to Live Translate with Galaxy AI on Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Learn more at Samsung.com. Samsung account login required. Calls must be made using the native Samsung dialer.
This episode is brought to you by Essentia. A better you starts with better hydration. Essentia is on a mission to inspire people to do what matters most. Their proprietary ionization process transforms water from any source into ionized alkaline water, providing water that's 99.9% pure with a pH of 9.5 or higher. Essentia Overachieving H2O, the #1 ionized alkaline water. Shop now.
When was the last time I took a road trip? How many national parks could I hit in 2 weeks? What about hotels? Wait, hey, Erica, how much am I spending on travel?
When your questions about life turn into questions about money, there's Erica, the virtual financial assistant to help you spend, save, and plan smarter. Only from Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Your chat may be recorded and monitored for quality assurance. Message and data rates and additional terms may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
In today's lesson, I'm going to update you on a goal we made just over a year ago to go from making $0 to $100,000 per month through podcast sponsorships, and how you can create a break-even funnel or self-liquidation offer of your own. Hey, what's going on, my fellow and future millionaires? Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast, the only school where you graduate rich, not broke. This is Justin Williams, your chief money-making officer, coming at you live from sunny, it's a little overcast today, but San Diego, California, yes, we have returned. Our 9-month trip around the world has come to an end. It was a trip of a lifetime, but we are back and we're ready to attack. We have got some big plans for you and the MU crew. Maybe I should take up rapping. So as mentioned, for today, I want to give you an update on where we are with Millionaire University, where things are financially, like really pull back the curtain. And I especially want to update you on a goal that we made just over a year ago. A goal that we had when we were making absolutely nothing with Millionaire University, had abysmal downloads, had hardly any downloads. I shouldn't say abysmal because there were some listeners and just one person is worth it. But it definitely wasn't going to make us any money. And don't ask me why. I mean, looking back, it's kind of crazy, but out of nowhere, we came up with this goal to go from making $0 to making $100,000 a month with podcast sponsorships. Now, I know not everyone listening has a podcast. And the truth is, I don't think everyone should have a podcast. It's a lot of work. So while we're going to share some of the specifics of what has happened with the podcast and with Millionaire University and the numbers that we're at, ultimately, the goal is to pull as many takeaways from the lessons we've learned and the things we've been going through and help you apply those lessons into your own life and business. So first off, just to kind of recap where we were when we made this goal, and I went back and listened. It was episode 15, published on April 19th, 2023. And this was the episode when we put this out into the world, this goal of going from making $0 to $100,000 per month with podcast sponsorships. So just to add a little context, this was almost 2 months exactly after we launched the Millionaire University podcast. Now, Millionaire University is a concept that we have been thinking about and talking about for years. In fact, some of you who have been following us for a long time may know that we actually did launch a beta version, if you will, of Millionaire University several years ago. But at that time, we had our house flipping education business going. We were flipping houses. Our kids were young. And just like any business, it's a lot of work to get a new business going. And we realized we just can't put the time, energy, and effort into this thing that we want. But ultimately, that's what I wanted to do. That's what we wanted to do even before we launched the house flipping education business. But it just wasn't the right timing. It just wasn't the right fit. We knew that we had to do the real estate education business first. It was more specialized knowledge that we had. And it's just kind of the way things went down. And then prior to launching in February, I mean, for any of you who have ever launched a podcast and a website and a platform, there was so much time and effort that went into that. I mean, just going from where we were quote unquote retired and dabbling in some investments to deciding we wanted to commit to something, and then going through all the discussions that Tara and I had about, is this the right thing? And seeing our kids and them getting ready to go to that next level and us wanting to have something for them and wondering why it wasn't out there in the world, and knowing we wanted to do something, but also we were enjoying our lifestyle. And then one day to have it all come together and realize, okay, this is what we need to do. But then still the back and forth, I remember the discussions that Tara and I had and the internal battles. Do we want to put ourselves back out there? And we were talking about, oh, maybe Tara, you can do this thing. And it was this ongoing thing. And you probably, if you have a business of your own or have ever considered starting your own business, probably gone back and forth with this battle in your mind and your heart. And it's just so real, and how much it'll affect everything if you fully commit to this. So anyway, this was years in the making. And then once we decided to commit, it was months in the making of creating the website and the content and all the things that are involved in creating a business and a platform, the social media channels, and I could go on, but the day finally came when we were ready to launch our first few episodes of Millionaire University, and we could hardly wait. It's like, this was our baby. This was our dream. We were about to disrupt the education industry. We were going to change forever the way people could learn. And we knew that would just be the beginning, but we just couldn't wait to put the content out there to see how many people would listen to the first few episodes. We were so excited. I remember February 14th on Valentine's Day. We gave up our Valentine's Day, but we didn't care. It didn't matter because we were about to change the world. And so we scheduled it for the next day, for February 15th, our first episode, to go live at 3 o'clock in the morning, because we figured, okay, West Coast, 3 o'clock. That would mean East Coast would be 6 o'clock. So once everyone woke up, it would be there. And so we woke up in the morning and we were really excited. We wanted to see how many people had listened to the show. How many downloads did we get? How many people had reached out to tell us, oh, I can't wait to continue to listen and learn from you guys in this platform, Millionaire University. It's going to change my life. And then we woke up and there was like nothing. There might have been a couple downloads, just a few. I don't remember the exact number. And we thought, okay, it's just got to get some traction. And the next day, the next episode came out, and the same thing, hardly anything. And then the next day, the same thing. Another episode, hardly nothing. Saw a couple downloads on there. We weren't sure where those came from. Maybe they were tests that we did. So hours turned into days, days turned into weeks, and we just weren't getting any traction. There's like our fourth or fifth podcast that we had done, and we thought this one was going to be the biggest one ever because we had experience. We know what we're doing. We created some amazing content. We put so much time into this content. It wasn't just something that we threw together. It was like teaching people the foundations of everything that we knew, things that would help them grow their business and change their lives forever. And here we were almost a couple months later. And since I just listened to the episode, by then we had reached about 100 downloads per episode. And honestly, it was probably even less than that. Now, for some of you listening, you might think, oh, 100 listens per episode. That's not bad. That's 100 people listening to every episode. And you know what? You're right. And I should probably have a better attitude about it. But what I do know from podcasts that we've had in the past, we typically had a couple thousand, 3,000, maybe 4,000 up to 5,000-ish people listening per episode. And we had hoped that this time it would be significantly more than that. And we knew it when it started at a time, but we thought that it would start a lot higher and that we could really grow, but it just felt so hard to get traction. And so we thought of the success that we had in the past from the amount that we had before, and we're like, oh man, this is literally like 1/20th, 1/30th, 1/50th of that amount. So we started to enter, and let's consider this our first lesson for today's episode. We started to enter this phase, a phase that we've gone through in every business that we've ever started. A phase that every entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur has gone through when they start or attempt to start a business. We entered into the trough of sorrow, as I've heard it referred to. We entered into the dip, as Seth Godin refers to it as. We just felt crushed, felt embarrassed, ashamed. We put so much work into this, so much time, attention, and effort. This is the reason why a lot of people never even launch their business, because they don't want to face this feeling that they might feel by putting it out there. If you don't put it out there, then you still have the hope, right? You don't know. Once you put it out there and people don't pay attention, they don't listen, then that hope is gone. That dream feels like it's gone. The people who said you couldn't do it, they're right. Right? It's like they're right now. And this is kind of where we were. We were at this moment and no one was reaching out to us. No one was telling us how awesome our podcast was. Maybe like a family member or two, but no one that we didn't know who, wasn't obligated to tell us good things. And the difference this time too is we didn't need the money. We were in the spot where we didn't have to work for the rest of our lives. We had passive income coming in. We had investments. We had cash in the bank. We had equity in our house, lots of equity. We had crypto. We had all kinds of different things going on. We were good. That extra motivation wasn't there. So here we were in this trough of sorrow, feeling like it was hopeless. Nothing was going to work. This wasn't going to happen. This dream of doing this thing was over. And the voices start to get in your head where you're like, maybe we just don't want to do this. But what else were we going to do? The best and worst thing about making the amount of money that we had made and having the success that we have had was that I knew it didn't really change the way I felt inside. I knew that just having that money didn't make me feel fulfilled. There was more. There was something else that we had to do. So we had a choice that we had to make. And this is a choice that you have or will have to make with your business, that every entrepreneur has to make. It's a barrier to entry. It's a rite of passage for those who achieve great success or those who maybe just go on living their life in the way that they're currently living it or giving up on their dreams and goals. And this is actually a choice that you'll have to face many times, but it hits you much harder at certain times than others. We were in the trough of sorrow and despair. And we had one of two choices. We could either dig in deeper and double our efforts and double down and figure things out, figure out how to make this work. Not can we make it work, but how can we make it work? Or we could give up. We can go back to living our cushy lives and let this concept of Millionaire University, this thing that we had dreamed of, go to the wayside. Not really know how to help our kids figure out what they wanted to do next in life. Not really bring this vision that we had of changing and improving the education industry and the way people are able to learn and create wealth. It could all just go away. And you know what? The truth is not enough people were listening to where enough people would even know or care. So maybe we could get away with it. Only a few people would ask us, so what about Millionaire University? What about that thing? So obviously, I think you know what we chose. We chose to dig in. We chose to keep pushing. We took action. That action gave us information. And while it may not be the information we wanted, it's something. So now we need to figure out where to go from here. Now, I'm not going to get into everything that I talked about in episode 15, but it basically came down to this. Through knowledge that I already had from previous things that I had listened to, along with some additional research, combined with the resources that we had and our past experience, we came to the decision that we were going to attempt to grow our podcast through investing financially in its growth. Now, like I mentioned, we had started many podcasts in the past, and this is something that we had never done. We had grown through organic reach, through iTunes, as it used to be called, by getting in what they called new and noteworthy, by going on other podcasts and them interviewing us and us interviewing them, collaborations, as you might call it. We had an email list, we had a website. There's just all kinds of different things that we would do to grow the podcast. But a lot of it was organic. It just kind of happened through people looking for podcasts. I mean, there weren't nearly as many back then, right? So the game had changed, and the game is going to change for you and your business. It's going to change all the time. There's a great book called Who Moved My Cheese? I won't get into that too much, but the bottom line is your cheese, AKA the things that are working, the things that sustain you, that keep you alive in your business and your life, are constantly changing. And you need to constantly be moving with those changes. So we decided to learn. We decided to figure out what are people doing now that is working for them and that could work for us. And we found all kinds of things. But one of them was this idea of investing in growth, paying other podcast players to promote your show. And so as we got in, we ran some numbers and we learned what other people were saying and what we thought would happen or could happen, how much we could grow and how much we could make from that growth based on some things that we learned from other people and then some assumptions that we made of our own. So we came up with some hypothetical numbers, some things that we thought could maybe happen. We thought, okay, if we spend this much money to get in front of and acquire new listeners, it will probably cost us this much and it will probably make us this much. So the number ultimately that we came up with was, okay, we need to get 1.5 million listens or downloads per month to make $100,000 per month. Now, it was really interesting listening to that episode from over a year ago because there were a lot of assumptions that I was making that were kind of right, but a lot of them weren't right. Like the numbers that I'm using today, overall, very different. But at the end of the day, this was the goal. The goal was to get to where we were getting 1.5 million listens or downloads per month and making $100,000 per month from podcast sponsorships, which is the amount of money that we thought we would make based on that number of downloads. So we got to work and we started reaching out to different companies and people that we knew either allowed paid sponsorships on their show or agencies that worked with other shows and other people to connect you with the right people who did this kind of advertising on their show. Now, we didn't have any sponsorships yet. I mean, we just didn't have the numbers to where it felt like that really made sense. So we thought, okay, for this first year or at least several months, we're going to focus on growing. And then after a few months, once we're pretty big, we'll start to focus on getting the sponsorships. So we reached out to these people to help us and we were excited and we worked on the ad copy. And I mean, it took a lot of work. It was a lot of work going through all this and figuring out the ads we were going to do and finding the right company and the right shows and everything. And after doing this for a couple months and investing pretty heavily, it didn't feel like we were getting the results that we had hoped. In fact, I remember running those first few ads and expecting our downloads to just blow up after they went live. And we didn't really notice much of a difference. It was devastating. It was like, no. But we kept pushing forward and we tried some different podcast players and kept pushing with the ads and we're able to track a little more. And between doing these things and between being diligent and just continuing to produce what we felt like was high quality content, we started to get a little bit of traction. Nothing crazy, but we started to see something. And the numbers started to go down a little bit. We started to find the shows and the places where it wouldn't cost us quite as much. We were getting down closer to about $3 per download. But $3 per download still felt so expensive, so high. Like, how would we ever be able to turn a profit from that? But we kept trying and we kept trying different podcast players and different places to advertise. And we started to find some of these places that cost of downloads were much lower. It was closer to $1 or even, I think we started to get close to like 50 cents on some. And there was one podcast player that we advertised with where I think we started to get as low as like 50 cents or even down to like 30 cents per download. And it was really exciting. The numbers started to grow and we were like, yes, we've got this figured out. And so we had Tyson, Tara's brother, start to reach out to potential sponsors. And we're like, okay, we're going to start monetizing the podcast. And then we're going to take the money that we make from sponsors and we're going to pour that back into advertising. And we're just going to really grow this thing. So we crafted an email and created a credibility kit. I mean, we were ready to go. And Tyson just started reaching out to hundreds of people. And we just thought we were going to fill the ads so quickly. But it was so much harder than we thought. I mean, we got some responses, but it was just tough reaching out to these big companies. We had heard of other people who were getting sponsorships. And we just thought, oh, we're just going to email someone in the company and they're going to be stoked to be on our podcast. But even getting a hold of the right person to talk to felt next to impossible. So we thought, okay, let's go with an agency. So we reached out to several agencies and some responded, some didn't. And then we talked to one agency and they wanted to know more about our statistics. And so we looked up where most of our listeners were located. And a lot of the listeners that we had were located in some countries and areas that it just seemed odd to me. It just felt weird that that was like the base of our audience. And it didn't matter. Like I was okay with that. But the problem was that he told us that the majority of people that they worked with to sponsor shows, a lot of them were based in the US and or Canada. And while they were okay with some listeners from other places, they really needed the majority of our listeners to be in some of these locations. And what we were seeing is about 80% of our listeners were in some of these other locations. Now, he didn't tell us that this disqualifies us from working with them or they're not going to work with us, but we just didn't hear back from them. And a similar thing happened with some other agencies that we reached out to. We didn't even talk to them about the numbers per se, but it's like we talked to one and they seemed interested and excited and it just fizzled. So in the meantime, we were really working on changing the demographics of our listenership. We reached out to this company that was advertising for us and told them, hey, we really need to be focusing on advertising in these areas. And then we made sure that that was clear with the other people that we advertised with. But man, this was brutal. And I remember at the same time as this was happening, I was doing a lot of the recording and editing myself and Tara and I remember we were actually in Hawaii starting out our trip. I remember being in Waikiki and just working like all day for like 2 to 3 days straight and not even enjoying the trip we were having, not even going surfing, not even going out to the beach. And then just being like, what am I doing?
Want to know a secret? There's more to becoming a millionaire than making money. We talk a lot about building businesses and taking the road less traveled to achieve your goals. But the most successful entrepreneurs we know will tell you investing and growing your money is an essential component to creating wealth, which is why we're really excited about today's sponsor for this episode, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. It's never too late to start growing, and it's never too early either. You've heard us say about 1,000,000 times on this podcast that it takes small, consistent steps to build big results. And we love Acorns and how accessible it is to people at all levels of investment knowledge. So head to acorns.com/MU or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Paid non-client endorsement may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/MU. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC. Acorns is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC. Member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com.
Shopify has already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point-of-sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify POS is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/MU, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/MU to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/MU.
And I just felt like we were being rejected time and time again. In every way, shape, or form, I felt like everything we were trying wasn't working. We couldn't get anyone to sponsor us. We couldn't find the right demographic. People weren't returning our calls. It was just so frustrating. And once again, wanted to quit, wanted to throw in the towel so bad. But we kept pushing forward. And the truth is, by now, we had learned a lot of things. Not to mention that by now we had really spent a lot of time focusing on a bunch of different platforms. I remember we spent a lot of time focusing on Twitter at one point. And by now, at this point, we were really heavily focused on creating like blog content. Our focus was really kind of scattered in all these different directions. And the one thing, the podcast that we thought would be where we were making the most traction, where we should be making all this traction, kind of felt like we maybe weren't making traction, started to have the whole imposter syndrome, started to doubt ourselves. And it was rough because it had been a little bit since we had started another business. And I kind of felt like maybe we just don't have what it takes anymore. Maybe we just don't have that fire in the belly. We don't have the secret weapon, the magic pill, the Midas touch. My mom used to always say she thought I knew the secret. You know, that show, that book, The Secret, that came out many years ago. She's like, you know the secret. Some people thought that everything we touched would turn to gold. And we knew the work and the ups and downs that we had been through. But this time it just felt different. We couldn't figure it out. We were just hitting walls everywhere we went, but putting in so much work. And it felt like we just were running in circles or running into these walls and not really getting anywhere. But we did start to learn some things. And we were promoting and starting to advertise with different platforms and different podcast players. And we were seeing these numbers start to change. Our demographic numbers start to change. We started to see our cost per download go down. We started to see a little more traction. We were having people reach out to us and share with us the things that they had learned and how this was changing their life. So we had this conflict, constant conflict of, okay, I feel like something's still here. Let's keep going. Once again, what are we going to do if we quit? What are we going to do if we stop? So we kept going. And in the meantime, we started doing something called the Spotify SPAN program, SPAN. I think it stands for Spotify Programmatic Ad Network, I think, something like that. And by this time, I had learned and understood a little more about what people would pay to be on podcast, how it worked a little better. When I recorded the episode over a year ago, I kind of had an idea, but realized I didn't have that great of an idea. So by this time, we had learned that the going rate for pre or mid-roll ads was $20 to $30 CPM. That's $20 to $30 for every 1,000 listens. I mean, I know there are people that charge as high as 40 or 50, and the numbers range. It could be more or less than that, but that was about the going rate. And post-roll was less, closer to about $15 per 1,000 listens. And I knew that you could do 2 to 3 pre-roll ads, and you could do 2 to 3 mid-roll ads and a couple post-roll ads. Now, in a longer episode, you could do more. Just like if you're watching a TV show with commercials or a sporting program, obviously the longer it is, the more commercials there's going to be, right? But anyway, essentially I came to this conclusion that, okay, if you have on average 5 commercials per episode, or let's say you have 2 pre-roll commercials, 2 mid-roll ads, and 2 post-roll ads. Now, let's just go with the low numbers, or after you pay an agency, let's say that you end up making a $20 CPM on 4 pre and mid-roll commercials, because that's 2 pre, 2 mid. So if you're making $20 CPM on each one of those, that ends up being an $80 CPM total. And if you're making, let's say, $10 CPMs, whether you get those sponsors on your own or whether you get those from an agency that you have to pay, a 30% commission to, let's say that you end up walking away with $10 CPM for each one of those, the total would be $100 CPM, or $100 you could make for every 1,000 people that listen to your podcast. And then I thought, okay, well, if you have 3 pre-roll ads and 3 or 4 mid-roll and a couple post-roll, and if you were making more, if you're making like 25 per ad for pre and post, and running these numbers is like you could make up to $150 CPM. And then at the same time, we continued to do more advertising, and we continued to build these relationships with these advertisers and to see the numbers and find the best ways to advertise and how to get the biggest bang for our buck. And we were getting down to where we could get some of these downloads for 15, 30 cents. And it hit me. It was like, okay, if we can get listeners for 15 to 30 cents and they listen to just a few episodes, then we could get to the point where the money we make per download offsets the cost of this advertising. And at this point, we had invested several $100,000 into growing our podcast. And the numbers were a lot higher by now, but we also had spent more in the beginning than we needed to, and we hadn't really gotten the sponsorships yet to offset that. But we started working with this SPAN program. Now, the only problem with the SPAN program, and I didn't know the exact numbers going into it, and I don't know if these are the exact numbers, but these are the numbers that we are currently getting after having been with them for some time. On average, with the SPAN program, it's an $18 CPM, but they keep 50%. So we walk away with a $9 CPM. Another issue, if you will, or just a thing to be aware of with the SPAN program, and this is probably similar with most companies or platforms that run programmatic ads, is the ad doesn't necessarily go to everyone who listens to the podcast. The cool thing about programmatic ads is they can pick based on where you are, what kind of ads you get based on your demographic. So what we were finding is at the beginning when we were doing the SPAN program, because of some of the locations that I was referring to earlier, only 20% of our listeners were even getting these ads. So we were getting 50% of the $18 per 1,000 listens, but it was only going to 20% of our audience. So we were only getting paid 50% of $18 on 20% of our audience, which anyway ended up being like $2 per 1,000 listens. But if you're running 5 commercials per episode, that ends up being like $10 per 1,000 listens. But that still didn't work. But we weren't giving up. Good things were starting to happen. I just knew that we were going to land an agency at some point or figure out how to get sponsors. I knew our show was growing. At this point, we were getting thousands of listeners to every episode. We had gone from 1 episode a week to 2 a week to then 3 a week. We were really getting some impressive numbers. Some things that agencies and other podcasters and other people in the space we knew would be impressed with. We knew it would give us a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So we knew something was there. By now we had talked to several agencies. We were just trying to find the right fit. We just felt like something at some point was going to come together. At the same time, we continued to develop these relationships. And to give one example, one of the companies that we were working with, we stopped advertising with them for a while because we were trying to figure out the sponsorship thing. And when we came back, we had done so much business with them. We were able to negotiate a deal where not only did they give us a discount, but they threw in some other territories for free that weren't full. So with them, we realized, wow, we're starting to get to the point where we're getting some of these downloads, some of these listens that are only costing us around 10, maybe 15 cents. And around the same time I was out, I remember we were in Madrid, Spain. It was the first city we went to in Europe. Tara and I were out running. I was running by the palace in Madrid and I was listening to this podcast. It was our podcast. It was someone that Brian Guerin had interviewed. And I remember thinking, this is a great podcast. This guy has a great coaching program. He's sharing all kinds of cool things with us. And I thought, dang it, this guy is getting promoted by my show that I'm paying Brian to record with him. And I'm paying our editor to edit. This was me listening to it, right? Before I put it out there. And I was like, he creates some great content. There's going to be some people out there that are going to like listen and reach out to him and want to work with him. And I was like, I am paying for him to do that. So it hit me right then and there. This is once again from other information that I had. I know some amazing podcasters who allow people to contribute to be on their show. John Lee Dumas, for example, he made the shift. He realized that, hey, I'm providing great content and great value to people, but people are coming on my show. I have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people listening to the show, and people are coming on and it's like a free advertisement for them. Now they give value, right? But part of the goal of putting yourself out there and creating content is you build this relationship with people. You give value, they know, like, and trust you, and then they want to work with you. So it hit him. He's like, why am I not charging people to do this? And so that hit me at that moment. I was like, why am I not charging people or allowing them to help contribute at least to the production and promotion of their episode or of the Millionaire University podcast? You know, at this time we had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it wasn't like I had given up, but I was trying to find that way. How can we make this work? I know it can work. How can it work? We also on a monthly basis have at least a couple hundred people reach out who want to be on the show. Now, normally we just kind of ignore those emails just because they're overwhelming. There's so many, but there had been many times where I did kind of see one. And I'm like, it seems like they could be a pretty good guest. So what we started to do is we started responding to those emails, at least the ones that seemed like they would be a good fit and add good value, and started to say, hey, you know, we'd love to have you come on the show. It seems like you'd be a good fit, but we're looking for guests who are willing and or able to contribute to helping produce and promote their episode. And a lot of people didn't respond, or a lot of people said, no, that's not a fit for us. But then we got someone who said, sure, I'd love to do that. And I did some more research on them, listened to some other podcasts that they had done, and they seemed like a great fit. And we created a series, and it was an amazing series, and it gave a ton of value, and a lot of people got a lot from it. And I was like, okay, I think we're onto something here. So we continued to do that, and we continue to have several of our guests contribute towards the production and promotion of their episode. And what we actually found is the caliber of these guests was actually in a lot of cases even better than some of the guests who didn't give that contribution. So all these things started to come together. We had some people that were helping contribute to the continued production and growth of the show. We were making a little more money through Spotify Span because now we were in some different locations. So our percentage was going up. More like 50, 60, 70% of the people who were listening to our podcast were getting the ads. So we were getting paid from the Span program. And then the same agency that we kind of lost connection with, we got back in touch with them and worked out a deal. But prior to that, I had already been reaching out to people to try to get some sponsors for the show. So we started working with this agency. They started reaching out to people for us, and it took a little bit. But in the meantime, I started to get a few of our sponsors that were coming through. And then just a few weeks ago, the agency started to reach out and say, hey, we've got this person locked in. And these were companies like Kajabi, Spotify, Acorns, LinkedIn, like some big companies were ready and excited to be sponsors on our show. And in the meantime, we started to find other ways of promoting the show that were about the same cost, that were closer to that 10 or 15 cents per download. So let me explain a little bit. I know I've kind of mentioned the CPMs, but if you break it down, if you're making $100 CPM total, or if you're making $100 for every 1,000 people that listen to your show, and once again, the way that's broken down is if you have about 5 ads per show that on average are making you about $20 CPM each, that's $100 CPM. That breaks down to 10 cents per download. So we kind of came to the realization that, wait a minute, these two numbers were starting to meet. These numbers that at first was costing us several dollars to get a download and we weren't making anything. And then we got to the point where we were making like a penny per download, and then 2 pennies per download, and then 3 pennies per download. And we started to get the downloads to where it was like, it cost us a couple dollars to get a download, to $1, to 50 cents, to 20. We were burning kind of at two ends of this rope, and our cost per downloads were going lower, and the money we were making per download was going higher. So recently, as we've been getting these sponsors, and this is all happening real time, the week as I'm recording this, which this will come out a few days after I'm recording it, we just started working with a new sponsor. And then there's another one that's supposed to come through tomorrow, one of the ones that I got personally. And then at the beginning of the month is when I think we'll start working with LinkedIn. So we're currently in the spot that's really exciting because we're currently making just about as much money as we're spending to grow. So for example, we're spending about 10 to 15 cents to get a download or a listen, which equals a new potential listener or subscriber, but we're making about 10 to 15 cents for every download. So if you think about it, if on average each person listens to 2 episodes, we're making $2 for every dollar we spend. Now, the way that would really work is some people would come listen to one and not listen to more. That's just how it works. You know, how many websites have you gone to that you just went in, you got what you were looking for, and you didn't visit again? And then there's a percentage of people that will listen to a lot of episodes and become lifetime listeners. And then there's those in between that will select and listen to some episodes. But essentially, we have created, or we are at that tipping point of creating what is referred to as a self-liquidation offer or a break-even funnel. Essentially, we're getting free listeners. Now, it's not really free because we've put a lot of hard work and effort into building these relationships and putting ourselves out there and creating the content. But it's getting really exciting as to where at the beginning we were investing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now it's like for every dollar we invest, we're getting that dollar back. And I see a point in the near future where every dollar we invest, we'll be getting $2 back. And where it gets really exciting is then a percentage of those gets on our email list. And as we continue to grow, and now that we're home, back from our trip, we'll start to do more collaborating with other podcasters, other business owners, other content creators, and we'll be able to start spending significantly more. So right now we're at about 200,000 downloads per month. Mind blown, right? At the beginning, we were doing like a few hundred per month. Like about a year ago, we're at like 100 per episode. And now we're about 15,000 per episode. We're doing 3 episodes per week. And overall, we're getting about 200,000 listens per month. And our goal is to be at 1 million per month by the end of the year. And then not to get too crazy, but just put it out there, I would like to be at several million by the end of next year, by the end of 2025.
Hola.
Hello, this call is being translated.
Abuela, listen to what my phone can do.
Abuela, escucha lo que mi teléfono puede hacer.
Wow. Ahora dime sobre tu novia nueva.
Wow, now tell me about this new girlfriend.
Huh?
Tú sabes lo que dije.
You know what I said.
Language is no longer a barrier thanks to Live Translate with Galaxy AI on Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Learn more at Samsung.com. Samsung account login required. Calls must be made using the native Samsung dialer.
More and more entrepreneurs and investors are discovering the awesome franchise opportunities that exist across a variety of industries. Franchising can simply be the better path, and interest in franchising is at an all-time high. Lucky for you, John Austenson, founder of Fran Bridge Consulting and a past Millionaire University guest, is here to help you explore the premier franchise opportunities today. John and his FranBridge consulting team are part of the largest franchise brokerage in the U.S. and have vetted the market thoroughly. FranBridge is hands down the premier source for the best opportunities in the franchise world, including both active and passive opportunities. From tiny homes to youth soccer to industrial hoses to pets, senior care to mental health, and more. John has served as an Inc. 500 franchisor and is a multi-brand franchisee himself. And he does more placements than anyone else in the country. Sign up for a free consultation call with John today or get a free copy of his book, Non-Food Franchising, at franbridgeconsulting.com. That's franbridgeconsulting.com. Available in the U.S. and Canada. And the reason why these numbers are possible, these exponential growth numbers, once again, is because, we took some of that upfront money, invested it into growing, but now we're making that money back as we spend it. So as to where before it was like spend a bunch of money to get some growth, now it's like spend some money to make that money back and then some. And as we tip that scales, if for every dollar we spend, we're able to make 2 and 3 consistently, that's how you grow $1 million business. That's how you grow a multi-million-dollar business. Once again, I'm not saying it's easy. You got to create the systems and the content, and you've got to create value. You've got to have the products and processes in place, but that's where it starts to get really fun. Now, at some point, we will start to create some products and some programs. And the exciting thing about that is if we're getting 1 million or a few million downloads per month, listeners per month, we have this platform and those products and programs will be so much easier to promote. Okay, so here's the thing. Our goal is to be as transparent as possible with you guys and really pull back the curtain on our business, on other people's businesses. And as you heard, you're like, hey, but the goal was 1 million downloads or 1.5 million downloads and $100,000 per month. We didn't reach our goal, right? And this is where the lessons come in. If we didn't have that goal, if we didn't have that vision, that theory, we wouldn't be where we are right now. We wouldn't be at a spot where now it's much more clear on how to get there. We've gotten that traction. And the truth is, as I look back at most of the goals, the BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals that I've made throughout my life, it first came with having that goal. It came with wanting to make that first $1 million, but then ending up with $120,000 of debt right out of college with a baby on the way. But always feeling rich within because knowing what was possible, knowing where I was headed, knowing that I wouldn't give up, knowing that once I committed to that goal, and I'm not just talking about becoming a millionaire, but the goal of freedom, of financial freedom, the goal of being able to take care of your family and not be told what you can and can't do based on your income. Once I had that goal and was moving in that direction, I knew it was possible. It was as if it had already happened, like I could not be stopped. But it hasn't and usually doesn't happen in the timetable that we think it's going to. You may have heard it said, we can usually accomplish less in a year than we think, but we can accomplish more in 5 years than we think we can. And the reason for that is business is not linear. Why in every business that we've ever started, and I think just about every business that's ever been started ever, at the beginning, you don't make money. You don't see that linear, that day to day. You don't work for a day and make $100. You don't work for an hour and make a certain amount of money. You work, you invest, you put time, attention, effort, energy. Maybe you're doing something on the side, trying to figure something out, and you don't see those results at first. And that's why most people quit. But over time, as you continue to push forward in these things, different things start to come together, and they start to come together at similar times. You're learning more. Your knowledge and experience in that area is greater. You've taken action and you've gotten information from that action that nobody else has. We now have specified knowledge and information that fit us, our situation, the people that we have been working with and the way that we've been working with, that it is impossible to duplicate. I can share with you, I've shared with you so much today, and I could share with you the exact details of the exact things, and you still couldn't duplicate it. No, I'm not saying that because I don't want you to go out and be successful, right? We share a ton here and we'll continue to share a ton, but there is something reserved for those individuals who are willing to put themselves out there, who are willing to take that action, willing to go into the unknown without getting a guaranteed paid lump sum. But only one of two things will happen when you set out on this journey, on this adventure, when you commit to taking action, when you commit to making something happen, you'll either arrive to that destination, you'll get to that place, you'll reach those goals, or you'll quit. It's only one of two. Like, there is no real failure. A business does not fail. The person either reaches their goals or they quit before they get there. That's it. And it's okay if you change up what you do. It's okay if you pivot. It's okay if you even change your business, but keep moving forward and keep moving forward with the right kinds of actions. I've seen it time and time again where people will think of an idea and they'll dabble here and dabble there and they'll work on a website and then they do a new thing. You've got to do revenue driving activities. You've got to figure out how to make that money, how to bring in those sales. Everyone's situation is different. For us, we did have some capital that we could invest at the beginning, but it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you just keep pouring money into a business, into a thing without getting the return back, without bringing in revenue, without making money, you will eventually run out. You don't want to do that with your own money or someone else's money. And so there came a point where we had to just start figuring out the revenue piece. We had created the product, if you will, the listeners, we had that going. We started to monetize and then we continued to push forward in that. And now we're at the spot where all these things are coming together and we're starting to hit that very beginning of the hockey stick that will continue for years to come. I can see the chart right now. We're just there. We're just at that very beginning of that hockey stick in a company that will turn into tens of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in profit and value over the years to come. And you can do this same thing. So several takeaways that I want you to have from this episode. You need to take fast, effective action in whatever it is that you think you might want to do. We've talked about it in past episodes. You don't need to have this crazy new original idea. Think about what it is that you like. Think about your skills. Think about a platform that could work for you and start taking action, because that's the only way you're going to get information. Start to take that effective action towards those goals and have the mindset of you're always learning. Don't worry if things work out perfectly. You won't lose any money that you don't invest. So don't invest a ton of money. Tara and I had that. So we were able and willing to do that, but you do not need to do that. And the next thing I'm going to tell you is you will come to your trough of sorrow. You will come to it many times. You'll be excited at the beginning. You're taking action. Things are happening. There will come a point many times over where you're just like, oh man, this is not going how I planned. This is tough. And that's when you want to keep pushing through. I mean, you can always pivot. I'm not saying you have to stick with the exact same thing all the time. We've pivoted many times within all of our businesses, everything that we've done, pivots upon pivots upon pivots. But the key is you keep going. You keep pushing through. You keep learning. We live in the information age. Everything is out there. You can shoot me an email and I will respond to you. The next lesson and one of the biggest takeaways from this episode is I want you to focus on and think about what is your self-liquidation offer? What is your break-even funnel? Once again, not that the goal is to break even or not make money. The goal is how can you build something and create something that essentially pays for itself? Right now, we're to a point where we are essentially going to be building an audience for free and or getting paid to build that audience. And then soon what we'll do is we'll come up with a program or an offer, and we're building our email list, but not as quickly as I would like. And we're actually investing in building our email list, but we will come up with an offer at some point that for every dollar we spend, we're getting that dollar back or we're making money from that. And then anything that we promote or sell after that is all gravy, right? We've created our own platform. We don't have to rely on Facebook or Google or anyone else or anything else to provide that platform or that audience, those eyeballs, those earballs to us, because we've created our own platform. We have a very large email list. We have lots of listeners to the podcast. We have people coming to the website. Now, don't do all this at the beginning. We've done that. We've tried to do that. It doesn't work. Focus on one thing, one avenue, and lean into that. And maybe you try to test out a couple things, and then you do more of that, and then you figure out what's working best, and you double down on that. That's how you're going to get traction. That's how you're going to get success. Now, if I were doing it all over, I'm not a person to change anything up. And I love podcasting. I love talking. So this is definitely the platform for me. But just to give you an idea, as I've been diving deeper into this concept of self-liquidation and break-even funnel, I'm really intrigued by the idea of newsletters and email lists. I love email lists because it's something that you control, something that you own. But if you could come up with an offer, and I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but come up with an offer where you're spending a few dollars to get that lead, to get someone interested in what you have to share. And then you have enough people that take you up on that offer, that buy that offer to pay for those leads. You can grow an email list. And you can figure out how to self-liquidate an email list or a newsletter. Like, let's say that you love dogs or pets or anything, and you want to write a weekly email about these pets. And then you run ads on Facebook and or Google letting people know, hey, sign up for my newsletter. I'm going to send you this or that. Or they get like a freebie, a free thing. Or you come up with a course or an offer that teaches them certain things or has certain promotions or whatnot. You can then create this newsletter that people will pay you or sponsor you to be on your newsletter, right? You can advertise for them in your newsletter, or you can have affiliate offers in your newsletter, or you can sell your own products or programs in your newsletter. But how cool would it be if you get to the point where for every dollar you spend to get people on your newsletter, you're making $1 back, or you're making $2 back. Maybe at the beginning, you're making $1 back, spending $1, making $1, right? And then you just grow this thing to where you have several 100,000 people on your newsletter. And now you're just making profit from that. You're either selling sponsorship space on the newsletter or you're selling your own products or services. That's where it gets really exciting. And the thing is, you might be saying, well, I don't have the money up front to invest into that. That's okay. Just start creating the newsletter and you'll get some people to sign up for it. Or you could always reach out to someone who might have bigger pockets, might have some investment dollars. And you might say, hey, I've got this newsletter. Like, I'm really experienced in this thing and this topic. And, or I'm going to like put together these people who are going to write about this topic. Would you be interested in helping me grow this newsletter? And you can have X% of the equity, right? Maybe they're 50-50 partners. I don't know. But I love doing stuff like that. Or let's say that you want to do e-commerce and you have a product that you know that for every dollar you spend to promote the product, you can make $2 back. Those are very investable things, right? At first, I recommend you put in some brute force, you prove what you have, and then you can easily go to an investor and pour some gasoline on the fire. Or maybe you don't go to the investor because maybe you just are making $2 back on every dollar you spend. And so you just invest your own money, right? It depends on the situation. Or you go to someone, you recognize, oh shoot, I'm making 100% return on my money. I could pay someone 10% on their money and I can pour some gasoline on this fire. Now make sure you follow the rules and regulations for borrowing people's money. That's not something to be taken lightly, but it's just so exciting, all the different things you can do to grow your business. So as always, I did not plan on going this long, but I hope you got some value out of this. We're pumped to be back. We have a lot of exciting things planned here at Millionaire University. Stay tuned. We have some incredible episodes coming up. If you have not yet subscribed to the podcast, follow. We would love a rating and review, if at all possible, on any platform you're listening to. But believe in yourself, believe in what is possible, take action. And until next time, this is Justin Williams, your Chief Money-Making Officer, signing off from slightly sunny San Diego, California. Class dismissed.
Hey, Eric Fisher here, and if you love the conversations and lessons happening on this show, and you've heard my voice before, you'll love my show, Beyond the To-Do List. It's a podcast about productivity and getting things done in all the areas where we wear multiple hats and roles, but also about the true meaning of productivity, living a more meaningful life. Look, you've got a never-ending to-do list, but add this podcast to your to-do list and it will help you tackle the rest. Go right now wherever you're listening to this and search Beyond the To-Do List and hit follow or subscribe. Start listening and get that boost for your productivity that you've been needing. Again, that's Beyond the To-Do List. Search in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast.